Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutravasha Krito Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Dayakaram Dayakaram Dantan Dharma Pravartakam Pranamami Dayanandam Madacharya Paramparam. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hari Om and Namaste again. We are seeing the concluding verses of our Pañcadaśī, chapter 1. And Vidyaranya here is speaking about Nididhyasanam. And he brings in also this, he compares it to Nirvikalpa Samadhi, what the yogis call Nirvikalpa Samadhi, how it is similar to our Nididhyasanam. But we will see again, there are some differences because, of course, yoga has the samadhi where all the vrittis are resolved. And here in Nididhyasanam, we're talking about vritti resolution for the time being when the dheya vastu or the object of contemplation is seen, which is Atma, which is again recognized, it is claimed, but open-eyed after the Nididhyasanam, the knowledge is always there. Whereas in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it is a state. So one enters the state, and when one comes out of the state, one is the same. The person is the same. Maybe a little bit, the fundamental thing has not shifted because the teaching is the one thing that can shift the mind cognitively. Let us also chant the shlokas, the prayer verses of Pañcadaśī. Natva Shri Bharati Tirtha Vidyaranya Muni Ishvaro Adhimahe Pañcadaśīm Kaivalya Pada Siddhaye. Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambujanmane Savilasa Maha Grasaika Karmane. So this flame Krishna has talked about in the Gita, a mind like the steady flame which doesn't flicker, like in a windless place. You see it burning brightly. The vritti is held, it flows. Also another example given by the masters is like the ghee or like viscous material like oil, when you pour it from one cup to another, how it flows without breaking. That type of flow of thought is there towards the object of contemplation. And this is called, in Vedantic meditation, again, we have to see the difference between what is Vedantic meditation, which is Nididhyasanam, and the yoga meditation. But there will come a doubt here. If the vritti is flowing towards the object, and we saw yesterday that samadhi is like hands-free riding a bike, right? So you are not, you are totally absorbed. You are totally easily going to the object of meditation without any effort. That is samadhi. Then what about the thought? Is there a thought still in the mind going towards the object? That is the doubt that comes. If the mind is fully resolved in samadhi, then who is there to recognize? Because we saw yesterday, the meditator and the meditation process itself are resolved in the object of meditation. And only the object of meditation exists. But who is there to recognize that? Because there is no thought anymore in that state. So this doubt he brings up in the 56th verse, and we will see what happens. Vrittayastu tadanim, vrittayastu tadanim, ajñātāpyatma gocharaha, smaranādanumiyante, vyuttitasya samuttitat. So there's a doubt raised here. If the mind is absorbed in the object of meditation, then who is there to know this? Very, very, we will all have this doubt. Who is there left to know that it is absorbed? How does one know when the very meditator disappears in this process? So dharana here, dharana fixing the mind, dhyanam, maintaining the same flow, keep bringing the mind back, like you're cycling, you fall off, you come back, you start cycling again, fall off, come back, dhyana, we saw that. And the final, which is samadhi. Samadhi, we saw, is effortlessly meditating on the object. Effortless meditation, mind abides on the object of meditation. That is called samadhi. And for the Vedanta people who study Vedanta, what is the object meditated upon? It is as though object, because Atma cannot be objectified. That is the whole, difficulty here. We speak about it as if it is an object. We study it as if it is an object. And we have to understand there is no, again, at the same time, words only have a certain way of approaching, and then they dissolve. Words approach Atma, but like Taittiriya Upanishad says, yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. The words approach Atma, then they resolve. They come back with the mind, the Upanishad says, because it cannot be grasped by the mind, yet the mind is needed to understand the truth of itself by, again, removing the doubts, removing the errors. And we saw that Atma is meditated upon in the sense that the words which are revealed in the Upanishads, which are implications, they are lakshanas, they point to consciousness, and the implied meaning is understood by the mind. That is the whole way it works. Sat, Chit, Ananda are pointing words. They reveal Swarupa, actually. They reveal the Swarupa, the nature of consciousness, and they eradicate all the doubts regarding the I. So the Vishaya, or the object of meditation, is gained through Shravanam. Repeated listening to the words of Vedanta help us understand this Vastu. They understand the nature of the self. But to understand or discover the Vastu in its reality, one needs to remove the errors. That's all that needs to be done. So here he says the mind becomes like an undisturbed lamp. For a yogi, undisturbed lamp, and there are no vrittis in samadhi, no thought forms at all when we talk about samadhi. So the meditator meditated, and only, as I said, the dhyayam, the object remains of meditation. So how, again, the question comes, how will we recognize that only the object remains if there's no thought? There is nothing to objectify the object in samadhi. The vrittis, thought forms, are the ones that objectify everything in the world. But what if the thought form itself is not there? What is there to objectify? How do we know? So this is where Vedanta says there are vrittis in samadhi. They are very, very, very subtle. It is, we have to understand this clearly. To recognize that I was in samadhi, you have to have been there in samadhi to know the state. It is exactly like deep sleep. In Vedanta, we don't ask everyone to swallow things. You have to see for yourself, because in Vedanta, we always try and prove what we say. How do we know there is a very, very subtle vritti in samadhi? So this is, how do we know this? Because in samadhi, we are dead to everything around us. So it is a total absorption, dead to everything around. We are, there's total loss of body consciousness there. But as I said, only the object of meditation remains. And how do we know that object of meditation alone remains? Because when the person comes out of the state, he recalls, there is a smaranam, memory. Memory is the means of knowledge to understand that there was only the object remaining in the samadhi state. There is a saying in Sanskrit, yaya smriti sa anubhava purvika, which means where there is memory, there must have been an experience before. Think about this. Wherever there is memory, there must have been an experience before in the past. Because to remember something, you must have gone through that experience. So the inference, when you remember something, when you're waking up, you must have gone through it in the past somewhere. Even the dreams, suppose you see something in waking state, and you remember it, oh, I saw that. Where did I see it? Because you have seen it maybe years back, you saw the same thing in the waking state, you remember it. And this is a rule here. So memory is there when you have gone through the experience before. So there's sometimes I always think, this, I don't know whether you call it, in English, it's called déjà vu. Maybe in Swedish also you have déjà vu. Déjà vu means already seen. Sometimes you have an experience of, I've already lived through this. When you're in this moment, you have this feeling, my goodness, I've already gone through this. How come I remember? I've had a couple of those experiences in my own life. It is very strange. I remembered the conversation somebody was going to ask me. We don't know how is it happening, because there's only one time, actually. There is only now. There is no past and future. It's very strange that the déjà vu types of experiences show that, there is only now that is experienced. In Atma, there is only timeless now. But in the level of states of mind, we have past, present, and future, because past, present, future are states of mind. What goes through past, present, and future? It is only the mind that experiences past, present, and future. But does Atma ever experience past, present, future? Never. It is always there. Remember, Satyam, Trikalepi Yattishtati iti Satyam, Tattva-bodha definition. That which exists in all three periods of time is Satyam. But with the mind, we can recall. So memory, why is it important to understand this? Because people often think, if, I get dementia, suppose I'm a jnani, and then I get dementia or Alzheimer's, will I forget the knowledge? No, because Atma Jnanam is not memory-based knowledge. This is very important to understand. It is not based on your memory. So once the shift has happened, you have discovered the truth, there is no returning back to ajnanam state. There's not a state where you can go back to ignorance. You either know it or you don't. That's all. That's how it is. And when you know it, the mind can go through other states. Mind can develop maybe dementia. Mind can develop Alzheimer's. But you are already free of the mind. So you cannot, again, have the state of ajnanam that was identification with ajnanam. This is the whole idea here. But mind remembers there was a lesha, we call it ajnana lesha, which is a very, very, very subtle, ignorant vritti. In sleep, it is ignorant vritti. That is the only difference. Ajnana vritti in sleep you have, because when you wake up and somebody asks you, did you sleep well? Did you have a good rest? You are able to say, yes, I had an excellent sleep. Or you say, oh, I had terrible sleep. Because there was an ajnana vritti, which means you didn't know it at that time, that state. When you came out, you can recall it, ajnana vritti. But when comes samadhi, when one comes out, it is not like ajnana vritti. There is no vritti in samadhi at all. But it is a very, very, very subtle, it's not like a real vritti, very, very subtle thought form. It is a smarana vritti. And it remembers what? The experience only of object being there. The experience of the meditator and the meditation process itself being resolved, and only the object of meditation is remembered after one comes out of samadhi. So you don't remember it during samadhi. After you come out, there is a jnana vritti, a vritti of knowledge, not self-knowledge, but it's remembering after one comes out. And that's what he says here. Vyuttita, one who has come out of samadhi, remembers, I was pure awareness, only the object, only the awareness I was in samadhi. So this is, there are two types of samadhi as well, savikalpa with object. We're talking about savikalpa. Nirvikalpa is total resolution of all three, meditator, meditation, and object. Nirvikalpa samadhi. Savikalpa means object is there alone. But with Vedanta, what is the difference then? Because this is a state. When the person yogi comes out of the state, that state is recalled through the subtle vritti that was there. Memory, remember? To have the memory now, you must have been there before. That is the mind. But with nididhyasanam, the type of samadhi, Vedanta samadhi that we are interested in, the vision that I am satyam, I am truth, and all the time I exist, that is 24/7 available to. So this is called sahaja samadhi, means whatever I do in the waking state, the balance is never lost. Whatever one does, the balance is never lost. So a jnani, a wise person, never loses sight of the vision because it is himself. Wherever he looks, it is he sees himself alone, which is the reflection of the self, Atma. And this is all obtained through abhyasa, constant contemplation, practice of the words that have been assimilated during Shravanam and Mananam. This is how the vision becomes spontaneous. He closes his eyes, the self is discovered. He opens his eyes, the self is seen through all the names and forms. It is a cognitive seeing. Even while the senses are open, they are available for the world to recognize the world. This jnani, he sees the truth. So after, samadhi, we say, samadhi, people when they come out, because it is ananda, again, another experience. You're totally in ananda in samadhi. When you come out, the outside world sometimes becomes more miserable. So this is why, we say experience seeking can lead to more suffering eventually, because when you have a very, very, enlightening experience or a wonderful experience, then what happens? You look for it again and again and again. So this is why, we constantly point out the pitfalls in seeking experiences. So now he carries on with the same topic. He says in the next verse, Vrittinam anuvrittistu prayatnat pratamadapi adrishta sakridabhyasa samskara sachivad bhavet samskara sachivad bhavet. So when I'll just give the breakdown, the sustained continuity of the contemplation vrittinam anuvrittihi, the sustained continuity of the contemplation vritti, first comes by deliberate effort. Pratamad api prayatnat. Pratamad api prayatnat. It first comes through deliberate practice. Later, he says, keeps up with the help of punya. So this is interesting. Punya palam manifests to first he says adrishta, which is punya. So repeated practice, abhyasa, and the impressions that this practice leaves, which is samskara. And this is, this is how that thought is maintained in this nididhyasanam, the contemplation. So how can the idea here again, we ask these questions, how can the mind that focuses on one thing exist and continue in samadhi? And who is there? We ask again, who is there to maintain the vritti? And who is the action done by? And where is the subject that maintains the similar thoughts in this state? This is called anuvritti. Anuvritti. So here there are stages he discusses. How does this happen? How does the mind totally get resolved in this practice? First, deliberate effort is this first word he uses, abhyasa. Practice, we saw, that makes perfect. Then how does the vritti continue? Because of deliberate effort put in initially, what does develops a habit of bringing the vritti to the vastu, bringing the vritti to the object of meditation. So there is a momentum that's created through regular practice. We can all see that, we saw in the, couple of weeks, we had the daily puja, the daily chanting, all of this. There is a momentum created. It becomes much easier because once I create this momentum, then it gets into the system. It's the same way with the practice of samadhi or any of these practices, nididhyasanam, also contemplation. He says you start with abhyasa first. Abhyasa is there. And then what happens after you do it for a length of time, because of adrishta, that's another factor that keeps the mind on the contemplation. Adrishta means punya. Because of certain punya, the vritti, thought form, can be maintained. And this adrishta can help eliminate all the obstacles that come in way of that thought. Keep one's punya up, especially spiritual punya. And we saw, when we were together, we saw also the way to keep up the punya is, again, through purta karma, which is the reaching out activities. Seva, charitable activities, is a way to earn spiritual punya. We can do the sankalpa for spiritual punya. So doing all of that help results. Or the practices of rituals, ritualistic practice, all of this can help also. So adrishta helps eliminate all the obstacles, and the samskara develops in the mind, constantly doing nididhyasanam. You don't have to worry about anything. Effortlessly, nididhyasanam happens and the mind flows towards the vishaya. So because of that samskara, he uses another word here. Samskara means repeated practice, like a vasana. In fact, your mind does not go to the Netflix or this flicks. It goes straight to Atma. Anytime, mind doesn't move anywhere. It keeps straight with the object of meditation, object of contemplation. Again, seeing oneself as that truth. So then he talks about adrishta, he talks about samskara, and now he brings in a verse that Krishna has, we saw just before we left, that Krishna has talked about in the 6th chapter about the mind being held in one focus. Yatha dipo nivatastah ityadibhir anekadha bhagavanimame Arjunaya nyarupayat. So Bhagavan, the Lord, he gave to Arjuna, he guided Arjuna, Arjunaya nyarupayat, on this very teaching, imam evartham. And in many ways, with such many ways, anekada, with such examples such as the lamp in a windless place, yatha dipo nivatastaha, and other examples, ityadibihi. So anekada means in many ways. Vidyaranya compares his description of samadhi to Krishna's teachings in the Bhagavad Gita. You see that. So there are many parts of the Bhagavad Gita where this focused mind, Krishna uses a lot of examples to explain. One is with this steady flame that we have seen before. Another one is the tortoise withdrawing, like a tortoise or turtle or a tortoise withdrawing its limbs at will. Tortoise, you just touch the shell a little and it withdraws its limbs at will from everything external. That is the type of focus that he is discussing here. The fruit of steadiness. The fruit of steadiness is this withdrawal, ability to withdraw the senses. Even if the senses are interacting with the world, the mind does not go out after the sense objects. That is the difference here. So quiet mind is gained by abiding in Brahman, abiding in that easeful, relaxed you. And he gives another example of the lotus flower being untouched by any muck that it lives in. The lotus flower. So even when we're doing nididhyasana, there is not anything that can enter us. It is like, they say water of a duck's back. It's like you're, wet proof. You don't let anything in at all. So lotus flower, he says, like this. There are many places in the Gita where he talks about the ability to not be affected while one focuses. And the beautiful thing is a jnani's mind, after knowledge also, he functions in the world. He doesn't withdraw from the world. He can choose to withdraw. That's a different game. He can choose to withdraw, but he can be in the world and be unaffected. So this is what this is what Vidyaranya says here. There is a way that the mind can be absorbed in the self while being in the world, while living in the world, while not getting affected by anything in the world. This is Gita's, Bhagavad Gita's promise. Krishna has talked about this repeatedly throughout the Gita, that we don't need to leave the world. We don't need to run off from the world. We don't need to escape the world. The world is a difficult place at times. We do go through ups and downs. How do we face, our downs? And, with this vision of Atma, now he's coming to the vision in Nididhyasanam, you can face anything and you can be free. That is the whole, vision here, why it is impactful for our own lives. Because there will be sorrows in life. We cannot help. Sometimes things happen and we don't know why they are coming to us. These times, these times, how do we face the situation? How do we get through? We all know Ishvara, we've heard that Ishvara Prasada, Ishvara is there, but sometimes are very, very difficult to face. And that is why, with the vision, along with acceptance, the mind slowly accepting what has gone by, one cannot change, and there must be a reason for it. The first level of Nididhyasanam we saw is to deal with our emotional problems. First level is Pratibandha. The first Pratibandhas are our emotions. And emotions always arise when difficulties are opening up in front of us. Difficulties mean things I don't expect to happen. I expect a certain result, but sometimes unexpected comes to us. That is called difficulties. When the unexpected comes, what do I do? How do I handle? That is where I take the help of Vedānta. I shift my vision. I see things differently as much as possible. I bring in the knowledge. This knowledge is mainly for when we face challenges. People say, many people say, oh, I can't remember Vedanta. When things are going well in life, actually, I'm sad to say we don't remember much of Ishvara or Vedanta. When things are always going sukha, well, we don't have any chance generally to think of Ishvara or think of facing the challenges. It is only when we have painful situations, which everybody has to go through sometime or other, where this, this Vedanta knowledge that Shravanam blesses, because you bring in the vision more and more. There is only Ishvara here, the only consciousness. This is what is unfolded again and again in Vedanta. Every text talks about it. If I'm getting trapped in the world, sometimes I have to be reminded of it. But when I get these unpleasant things manifesting in my life, I bring to my mind all that's studied, all the texts that are studied, bring to the mind the verses that have been studied, because that helps with dealing with the emotions. Emotion sometimes can take us over, and we find it very difficult to face the challenging situations. In fact, we find it very difficult, first of all, to face the emotions. The emotions themselves are rejected. This is where the first level is to accept. Yes, there is sadness, there is pain. I accept there is nothing wrong with it. Sometimes we have to go through the emotion for a length of time to come out of it. It is very natural to have that. At the same time, I keep the vision with me. I keep the vision always in my mind. And the vision is going to clear that emotion quicker. Otherwise, the emotion stays. Here, we're talking about a wise person. He has the total vision. So there is, with the total vision, in fact, unpleasant is not perceived as unpleasant. Pleasant is also not perceived as pleasant. Why? Because he is non-dual self. Opposites belong to the vyavaharika, the transactional reality. The non-dual self is discovered. Where can opposites trouble him? So this is what the vision he's talking about. And I was just bringing in the vyavaharika, in the vyavaharika vision, how we can practice that vision as we are living our lives. Now he goes on to another topic about karma. Now, this is interesting. He says here, anādha viha samsare samchittah karma kotayah anena vilayam yanti shuddho dharmo vivardhate. In this beginningless samsara, anādau iha samsare, crores of, or lakhs, or crores is an Indian term, but millions and millions of accumulated karmas, samachitaha karma kotayaha, limitless actually, it means samachitaha, well accumulated. Kotayaha is like we can't even describe the number like that. Accumulated karmas, what happens to them? By this steady assimilation of the teaching through nididhyasanam, through the samadhi that is described, Vedānta samadhi, as what happens to them? They go into dissolution, he says. Vilayam yanti. They go into dissolution. Then what happens? Pure dharma, the sattva, the clarity of mind, that alone remains with the person. That alone grows. So this is what is called, growing clarity. It comes from here. Shuddho dharmo vivardate. When you do karmas, they start. Karmas meaning the effect of karmas. We have to understand what does it mean, the karmas. Karmas don't bother us. It is a karma phalam. When we talk about karma here, karma phalam, the fruits of action is what bother us in life. Especially one type of fruit. What is that? Papa karma. Negative karmas bother us. They all dissolve. Why? Because the more and more you see Atma as the self, your true self, the less and less you are attached to karma phalam, because karma phalam cannot affect Atma. Karma phalam cannot touch Atma, especially the papa, the unpleasant results cannot affect. Like light in the room. Can light be touched by anything? Always remember, like the light in the room, I am like that light. I am untouched by any unpleasant things. So Papa, he says here, they dissolve. How do they dissolve? They dissolve only through knowledge. When did this karma get accumulated? So he gives a time frame here. What is that time frame? Anadha, anadhayaha. Anadhaya means anadau. They started. So there is no beginning for when I started accumulating karma. You can't point to the janma. Oh, 1 billion years ago, I was born as a first human being. Then I started my karmic journey. No, we don't remember all that. Anadau means anadayaha. It is anadi. It is beginningless. And Yoga Shastra, there's mental vritti elimination. Here, even though the karmas are going on, I don't need to eliminate the mind to not experience papa. This is the whole point. In the yoga, they want to get rid of, chitta vritti nirodha, thoughtless state. So, papa karma is not experienced. Here, we don't go into samadhi to escape from papa. We face the papa, a jnani, but he discovers it to be mithya. It is Vedānta. Papa cannot affect because it is seen as a dependent reality. So here, the idea here is that this punya destroys the karma. How? Through giving you the mind to discover the self. You cannot destroy limitless karma phalam by gaining more karma phalam. It doesn't work. By gaining more punya, you cannot eradicate punya, because there's limitless karma phalam in store for us to be experienced. By doing more activity, we cannot get rid of all that is to be experienced by us. So only jnanam, through jnanam, how does it destroy? The very doership is negated. That is the only way the karma can be eradicated. The doer is seen as false and Atma understood as what? One who never did the action, the one who is not acting now, one that will never act in future. This is a karta atma, the non-doing self. We will see more tomorrow. I will leave a little bit of this verse and then we will move on to the next verses tomorrow. Hari Om. पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ